Right. So I'm Ellen Alt, longtime member, mixed media artist, teacher, and community artist. And today I'm going to talk about the community art. Loading. So I'll just start the intro, which is what I want to show you today is a window into history. It's based in Israel, where I lived for many years. And I'm showing you this to say what happened when different doors opened and closed. And we're in a time where doors seem to be closing. And I just want you to remember that sometimes doors open, sometimes you can force them open, or sometimes you do what you can till they open again. Okay, so that's good. Okay, you can go to the next one. Next. Okay, so I learned community art in Israel. I finished college, went to Israel, volunteered with an organization that was to help you work and live there. And I learned community art, which is something I never heard about in school. I learned how to mix concrete, how to use it to make sculpture, how to have people do it with me, and how to make murals. Murals. Yes. This was in Ashkelon, Israel, a small town. I'll just go like this. And the basis of our work there was to work on public housing. Every part of public housing in Israel has a tenant organization, and you can work with a tenant organization to make improvements and talk and meet. So any tenant organization that wanted to do a project could, and we met with them, figured out what they wanted to make. And this is an example. This is an example of technical difficulties. Okay, so this was a big housing project. They wanted to do murals on the 3 panels. We set up scaffolding. There's no insurance, there's no ropes, just do it. And I'm just going to tell you one story from this, which was high up on the top, the clouds, was the top of the scaffolding. So I was a little scared. This is not my area of comfort. And this one guy said, I'll do it, but you have to meet me at 5 a.m. because I go to work at 6:30, and that's what we did. So I met him at 5 a.m. He did all the clouds in the sky, and it was done. Okay. Okay, after my 3 years in Ashkelon, where I learned all of this, and I was really trained in how to have communities make art together, I went back to New York for 5 years, and I did this series about English, Hebrew, and Latin and Arabic alphabets, which are all based on Canaanite pictograms, which I found mind-blowing, that these cultures are related by pictograms. So I did all these pieces, the whole alphabets. I learned Arabic calligraphy to do the Arabic. I already knew Hebrew and English, and wanted to tell you that. Then I went back to Israel for 11 years. Because I worked in this concrete and murals, I was picked up by the National Community Arts Council, and they started sending me to Arab villages to do this work. This is one example in Al-Fahim, a pretty big city in Israel, and I work with kindergarten teachers. They are the least seen group in Israel. In the Arab world, it's pretty patriarchal, and then women, and then kindergarten teachers. They're at the bottom. But this project was in the middle of the entrance to the village, and everyone saw it, and everyone was beeping all day long, saying, great, go for it, it looks fantastic. Gave them so much recognition. In 2000, The Oslo Peace Accords were signed. I happened to be there. This was the process for 7 years of confidence building till a Palestinian state would be built. That didn't happen, but the 7 years were amazing. And there was all this money to do projects between Israeli Jews and Palestinians. And Seeds of Peace was one of the groups I worked with. This was a workshop to do sculpture. How do you build peace? And they did the sculpture where listening is more important than talking. This was in Ramla, right near where my family lives. And we did, the city donated land. This is in a public park. It was, the open house was a home that, there's a book about this home. It's called The Lemon Tree. And you can read it. It was a home by Dahlia Landau, and she got a knock on the door in 1967. The original Arab family was in front of her, and they built a cooperative house together. So this is the group of sculptures that came out of that. And back one. And the city has kept it going. This is my niece, she lives right near there, and this is 2002. And they have redone the sculptures because they found if the heads are up, they're really fun to kick off. But if the heads are eating grass, they can't kick them off. So they redid them, and it's still there. There were a lot of summer projects with Jewish American groups who took Israeli Jews on the bus with them so they could get to know each other. And then during the Oslo years, they said, no, we need to also meet our Arab counterparts. So that happened many summers. And because I worked in all these Arab villages, I knew a lot of places we could go. And this is a Bedouin town in the south of Israel, Tel Sheva, and this is a playground we made. This is a highway project. This was 6th graders who lived near there. Arab schools and Jewish schools worked together and made Doves of Peace. In 1994, the Israel peace deal was signed, and one of the pieces from that series I showed you was presented to Hillary Clinton because a friend of mine knew the ambassador, the American ambassador. They said, we're doing this tonight. What do you know? Who do you know? And I got to give that piece. It's in the White House. In 2000, Pope John Paul came, and a Christian school wanted to present the chief rabbi to the Pope and to the Grand Mufti presents from these 5th graders. So they did their source texts of peace from each of their traditions. So now, I'm back in America, but I'm still very devoted to this work. There was an interfaith concert in our synagogue where I'm artist in residence, and we brought together the church groups, and we tried to get the Muslim group, but we couldn't do it this time for different reasons, and we did a backdrop of how to welcome guests. And now, this is my last slide, I'm still working with church groups, this time with younger kids, and we're making a flock of birds that's going to fly from the synagogues to the churches in our neighborhood, and it just keeps going. So the point is, do what you can.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really inspiring. And our next speaker is Joyce. Is she getting ready? What? Yeah, okay. Joyce has had a long career as an educator, starting with the Museum of Modern Art and School of Visual Arts, and she's now has created the program at the Pollock Krasner House, and so she is going to speak about her experiences with the public. So let's welcome Joyce.
Thank you so much. Could you start from the beginning? Could you do the slide play instead of showing the side? Please. Thank you. So my talk is called Art and the Light of Love in 2025 Chaos. Can you go to the next slide, please? And maybe I'm wondering why my face isn't showing up in the corner, but anyway, I'm starting with this quote by Dr. Martin Luther King: "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." And for me, art is a form of love. And I wonder, you can go to the next slide, living in a time of chaos right now. How can we as artists foster love, unify people, and also help people appreciate each other's differences in this time of extreme divisiveness? So I look to the past when fascism was on the rise in Europe for examples of courage and creativity. And Picasso pivoted his submission to the World's Fair when he learned of the bombing of Guernica, creating his memorial to this brutal massacre. But I love this piece because that light bulb at the top, it reminds me of the light of the artist shining light on darkness. Or is it the all-knowing eye of wisdom? Or is it even the bomb itself hovering over the town? So the image is ambiguous. And this is where art gets interesting. How do we invite the viewer to interpret art that is ambiguous? There's never one right meaning. And Picasso says the public who looks at the picture must interpret the symbols as they understand them. So I'm going to share with you how we could go about that. Could you go to the next slide, please? So for many years, I worked at the Museum of Modern Art, which was actually founded as an educational institution. The mission was to help people understand and enjoy visual arts. So how do we do that? Next slide. Victor D'Amico was the founding director of education, and he revolutionized art education. He believed art is a humanizing force for every man, woman, and child. And it was really a revolutionary movement at that time, the idea of instilling in people and fostering open-ended, creative, and critical thinking. Next slide, please. And I worked at both of these places. So after working at MoMA and many other museums, I founded my own company, imagine that, and I wrote 5 books about art based on modern art. So the next slide, please. And I'm going to focus on this book, Express Yourself. So tip number 1 is pick a topic that's relevant to people. Don't say, I'm going to talk about abstract expressionism. Instead, you could say, let's talk about feelings and how you can express feelings. So you're not dumbing anything down, but you're relating in a way that a wide audience can relate to the topic. Then choose pictures that have a wide appeal, like Jackson Pollock is so dramatic. And how do we get people to understand Pollock or any art, modern art? Ask open-ended questions. And like the last speaker said, listening is more important than talking. So you're going to ask simple questions like, what do you see in this picture? Now, someone might say, oh, it looks very scary to me. It looks like it's about something that's very frightening. Follow up with asking for reasoned evidence. What makes you say that? What makes you say it's scary? This is where you're developing critical thinking. Now, I do believe that if more people in this country had creative and critical thinking skills, we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in today. So that is the failure of our education system. Now, this is the fun part. Ask, does anybody see something different? Does someone have a different idea? Now, someone might say, oh, I think it's very joyful. And then you can drive the point home. Wait a minute, we're all looking at the same picture. How could it be one person thinks it's joyful, someone else thinks it's frightening? Who's right, who's wrong? Opposite ideas coexist. I take this basic tenet that people have different perspectives, and I try as best as I can to bring that into my everyday life. So when I meet someone at the airport wearing a MAGA hat and I start talking to him, I'm not filled with hatred. I'm filled with love. I want to know more. Why did you vote for Donald Trump? What makes you say that? Now, this isn't always easy. I get that. But I'm not a fan of people saying, I'm going to block this person. Everyone that voted for Trump is an idiot. Everybody, they're just stupid. They're all racist. I don't really think that's the way to go. I think that we fight hate with love, and art is one way to do that. We want to be open-ended thinkers. We have to walk the walk, not talk the talk. So that's just my opinion. Take for what it's worth. Next slide, please. So again, Marcel Duchamp says, a work of art is completed by the viewer. It's all about perception. Next slide. Now, in the books and in my education programs, we follow up with hands-on activities related to the art. And I think this is also great. Like my nephew said, oh, Aunt Joyce, I'm so stressed out with everything that's going on. He's not an artist. I said, Timmy, get out your paints, get out a pencil, make some art about it, right? Because a lot of people their mental health is actually suffering right now. Next slide. So of course, all of the methodology is formalized into programs, whether it be the family workshops at the Pollock House. Next slide. And in my own business that I brought these types of programs to the Pollock House, but I also do this separately. You can formulate libraries, school programs, internships, et cetera, virtual programs. And if anybody wants to know how to do that, you can contact me separately through the email. Next. And of course, virtual programs I love because you can reach a worldwide audience and you can reach homebound people. I actually have gotten people on my virtual programs who can't get out of bed. So I think it's an act of love to be willing to do Zoom. Not everybody is fortunate that they're mobile. And also, of course, people like me, I can Zoom into the meeting today. Next, please. And then you can take the Zoom programs or you could create videos and create a library on YouTube. And you'll notice here I have lots of different topics. So I don't necessarily go with art topics per se. It's more like alcoholism in art, the divine in art, the spiritual in art, trauma in art. I do happy programs, springtime in art, love in art. And that really, it gets a wider audience to participate. And I just find it really creative and fun. Next, please. So this is a little about my own art recently. I use like symbols that are meant to be completely unambiguous, like a Google Map symbol, and I arrange them with text to create a mystery and ambiguity. Next, please. This is just another example. Next. Now, once I heard J.D. Vance's comment that women who don't have children, such as myself, are sociopath cat ladies, that inspired me to make social justice posters. Next, please. And this is a form of education in and of itself. So this is a women's rights poster going through the maze, and it's a way of conveying a lot of information very quickly. So what is the route of women's rights? And when I sell these, I donate 50% to Planned Parenthood, 50% of the net. Next, please. I like to take common phrases like pro-life and kind of turn it upside down because, in fact, the abortion ban has caused so much maternal mortality that could have been prevented, and it just breaks my heart. Next. I like to kind of play on common ideas we have, like Heritage Month, so I created the Heritage Month for Child-Free Women, and I listed all of the wonderful women who don't have children, such as myself. Next. And I also do LGBTQ posters. Just Say They plays on Nancy Reagan's slogan, Just Say No. And instead of the war on drugs, it's the war on intolerance. Next. And this plays, if you're old enough to remember the ad, this is your brain on drugs. And this is your brain on censorship. So if you want to see all the posters, you could go to my website, joyceraimondostudio.com. And next, please. And I also use Instagram and social media, not just to promote my art, but also as an educational tool. So I like to post this, an action a day keeps fascism away. So it sort of gives you a bullet point of a quick action you can take. And I also have an email blast list. All this takes time, but it not only, I feel like I'm doing something helpful, but honestly, I'm helping myself because it helps me to find meaning in chaos. And it helps me sort of just find form to all the different things that are going on in my brain right now. Next, and the last slide, I'll end with Joseph Boy's quote, "To make people free is the aim of art. Therefore, art for me is the science of freedom."